Hi, this is Sharon from Sharon's Place. This is a video response to a video put out by Heather on the Kneady Homesteader. Heather, along with Angie from Angie's Pantry, put a video out and asked the question, do you add vinegar to your canner or do you not add vinegar to your canner? And if so, your reasons. Well, Mandy from More to Life also did a video on this, and Paul from Paul's Rule of Thumb did a video on it, and I know Michelle from All Sorts also did a video on it. Anyway, this is my response and my video. Now, first of all, a long time ago, I started canning. My husband's grandmother taught me how and bought me my first Presto canner. It was one of the smaller ones and it was heavy. I still have it and I still use it. Well, I did not know anything about the vinegar situation. I didn't know that it would take the sediment off the jars. For one thing, I lived in the country and had well water and never noticed a problem with my jars at that time. Now we're talking probably 40 years ago. So the question is, why did I ever start using vinegar to start with? Because I have used vinegar in the past. After I had moved into a town, a small town, and my water was calcium hard or lime hard, whichever you want to call it. It builds up a grayish white residue around all of our faucets and anything that has water associated with it, which causes a lot of faucet leaks, also dripping, because it builds up inside and those crystals get to be just like knives and eat up all the rubber gaskets and all that. So anyway, this would build up really badly on my jars, but I could wash it off at that time. I moved to a different house then and it was even worse, and that's where I'm living now, and it really built up badly. And someone told me, well, you can put a little bit of vinegar in there and stop that problem. So I thought, why not? So my story is this, and my question is this: should I or should I not use vinegar? Because when I first started out, I didn't have this problem, did not use it, knew nothing of it. I was a young woman. My first thing to can, by the way, was fish. How about that? It was the bony pieces of carp and buffalo fish that my husband's grandmother could not stand to see wasted, and people wouldn't eat it like they would the other parts of the fish. So she taught me how to can it, and it was good. Great fish cakes. We called them fish cakes, fish patties. They were little square, salmon cakes is what most people call them, but these weren't salmon cakes. They were carp and buffalo. So when I moved to town, I noticed, as I said earlier, I noticed I was getting some sediment on my jars. I moved to another house where I live now. Worse sediment. I had to scratch it off. You couldn't get it off just washing it. I didn't think about washing it with the vinegar. So I started using the vinegar and it was like a miracle. No more problems. So I thought, fine. Well, I bought a new canner, and it was a thinner Presto canner. Some of you probably have these. It's the more modern style, and they were thinner. And guess what? I started noticing the weight on my Presto canner was deteriorating. I'll see if I can show you a picture of this on the video. If I can't, I'll take a photograph and insert it. See that? I think you can see it. That's deterioration. Not only that, look at this. Can you see that? That's not buildup. That is a loss of integrity of the metal in the bottom of the pan. It's deterioration of the metal. And as you could tell, probably, this canner is one of those thinner ones. and it's a Presto. You can tell it's been used a lot. This is a short one. I also have a tall one. Same thing was happening in both of them. Well, guess what? That scared me. I thought, if this can do this to this canner, will this canner one day rupture? Will this weight be true to what size it's supposed to be? Or has it lost some of its weight? Will that eventually, maybe when it gets to the pressure it's supposed to be, will that thing come off? Is it letting steam escape? I noticed that it seemed like it was always hissing a little. So what did I do about that? Come to my mind that maybe vinegar was causing it. So I stopped using the vinegar and I bought some new gauges, weights, seals, and new canners. Although I still use this one from time to time, it really worries me. The pitting and degradation of the interior is not very deep, just a thin layer. But I still worry about it, so I thought, I've got to get away from using that canner. So I ordered a brand new, this year, All American, and it's the taller one. I'm not sure how many quarts it is. Some of you out there might know. It's not the biggest one, but it's the next one to the smaller one. This one is the taller one, but it only holds like 7 quarts in the bottom, I think. I've never tried to put more in it, but it is a double stacker. So I could put double stack pints in it. So after I got all the new weights, seals, valves, and I have about 5 canners, and so I altogether wound up with about 3 that I felt good about using, and they were the older models with the thicker, heavier metal, as heavy as the All American. Well, no, not really. With the lid on, the All American's a lot heavier. So I quit using the vinegar, and guess what? Terrible buildup on my jars and inside of my canners. Just awful in the weights and on the gauges around where the hole is, where the gauges are. And that worried me too, because I thought, what am I going to do if that's causing my gauges to be inaccurate? So I thought a lot about it, and I thought, well, maybe I was not drying my canners very well after I did the canning process. Maybe my washing and drying technique wasn't quite good enough. Maybe there was some vinegar residue that was sticking in the jars and causing the problem. So I thought, I'll try the vinegar again, only this time I just used a teaspoon or so, just a little bit, just a tiny splash. Now, when I was done with the canning process, I would take my jars out, and while it was hot, while the water is hot and the vinegar in the water, everything's very hot, I poured it down my sink. I felt like it was probably good for my sink. So I did pour it down the sink and wiped out and rinsed out and washed the canner, washed the lids, the gauge, everything, the racks, everything. And then I would put it all back together and set it on my stove on a burner that I had turned on and gotten hot. And I would set my canner on there and prop my lid a little bit off centered on my canner and let it dry. It wasn't hot enough to heat the canner, but it was hot enough that it just warmed it, and it dried out really good. So I started doing that, probably the first of this year, maybe January, February, whenever I started canning some beans and things. And you know what? I haven't had a problem yet. Also, I have not noticed my lids oxidizing or turning black. But I'll tell you what I have noticed. They are rusting a little sooner than they usually do. I said lids, I mean the bands, the rings. Well, I thought, I had another problem pop up in my mind. I thought, if the vinegar causes the lids or the rings to deteriorate, and to rust. What about the lids that's left on the jars? Even though you wash them, has that vinegar interfered with the integrity of those lids and that little bit of rubber that you can see on the outside? Even though you wash it off, could it have affected that lid? Could it shorten the shelf life of my jar of product? I'm putting this question out there to all of you. Is that a possibility? What do you think? Do you think the integrity of our lids and our seal has possibly been tampered with by using the vinegar? Leave it in the comments. Tell me what you think. And all of you out there that like to do videos about this, maybe someone out there has some kind of research that's been done on it or some sort of knowledge about it. But mostly I think it's just trial and error on our parts, don't you think? Just tell me what you think. I'd appreciate it. Now, as of this day forward, let me tell you that at the time being, sometimes I use a little vinegar, sometimes I don't. I'm more inclined now not to use the vinegar, but I can't promise you I won't. It's going to depend on how bad my jars are. And Paul, on Paul's Rule of Thumb, mentioned the stainless steel bands or rigs for your jars. It's pretty interesting. I didn't know they existed. So I might have to try those. But I also wonder, even though they're stainless steel, could the integrity of them be worn down also? All right, guys. I'm just not sure about that. But I do know this. I'm not going to stop canning. It's not such a bad thing to lose your rings. I'm not that worried about that because a lot of mine I have used throughout the years and they're getting to the point they need to be replaced anyway. And I have purchased new ones. And I'm also using the Tattler lids, and that is the lids that are plastic, heavy thick plastic with the rubber seal band, and you use a regular band on there. So in this case, I wouldn't worry about the integrity of the lid itself, but I still worry about that rubber seal. Could that vinegar possibly cause it to deteriorate and possibly crumble or something if it's sitting up there on the shelf? Under certain circumstances, could that happen? Anyway, as of right now, I plan on not using the vinegar. I'm a little worried about the safety of the food in the long run. But if my jars, if I'm unable to wash them good later to get that off, I can wash the jars on the outside with the vinegar, and if that will help it to come off fine, I would rather do that than to lose the integrity of that seal that I was mentioning. So, what do you think? Let me look and see if there's anything else I want to cover in my notes. I'm sitting here looking at them. If I can, I'll put links to the videos that the other guys have put out there on this question that I know of. And I also had something else happening to my jars. I had etching, a type of sort of etching. I don't know if that's where I tried to rub some of that sediment off and it scratched my jars. And I wondered if that could even be part of what was wrong when I washed my canners. But I really think it was eating into it like an acid. Maybe my water is a lot harder than a lot of people's. But still yet, I'd rather have ugly looking jars and have good product and safe product than pretty clean jars and possibly lose some of the food due to a failed seal in the future. I know not right then, but maybe later on down the road if it sat there for 6 months or so. I know we probably should use that food up within a year, but do we really? Does anybody use their canned food up year to year? Maybe some things, but not all of it. Well, guys, comment. tap the notification bell if you'd like to see more of my videos as I put them out. Like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And to all you others out there that did these videos, I really enjoyed them, and I would love to see Linda from Linda's Pantry put out a video on the same subject. I think I know what she does, but I still would like to see her make a video on it. So what about it, Linda? If you're listening or if you watch this video, I'd sure like to hear your version. Bye, everybody.